Okay, this is part two of the trend analysis lecture. Here we go. So I went over the first four things that you guys needed to be aware of. Fifth, in order to analyze the trend, as opposed to simply reporting, like this isn't a report, it's analysis paper. You need to think about the effects of the trend on the culture. So this will be a pretty big part of the paper. Like, how does this trend affect us and the way we do life and the culture around us? The sixth thing that this paper will do is suggest a possible solution for the trend. So some of your trends have problems associated with them, and what would the solution to your trend be, or the solution to the problems associated with your trend be? And most trends have some problems maybe embedded in them. What would the solution be for yours? And then the seventh thing that you should think about is, what is the counter trend? So if your trend is fitness, maybe your counter trend would be like complacency, or people who are not physically active enough, and what is that doing to them? So the counter trend would be like an opposite trend, something else that is working on the other side of your trend. So most trends have like a counter trend to them. You know, people who like are going with an organic lifestyle, the counter trend would be an increased consumption of processed foods. Like, that is also a trend, that we probably are consuming more processed foods than we ever have before. So another example, like if you look at the growing obsession with organic foods, you can go to Whole Foods, and everything that you buy in Whole Foods, that the Whole Foods market, is organic. But then we also have more obesity than ever before. So like both of those could be trends, counter trends of each other. So most trends, a counter trend exists. If you don't think you can come up with a counter trend, don't worry about that yet. I can help you after you've done some initial research on your trend. Yeah, trend spotting isn't just for entrepreneurs. There are people who are trend analysis watchers all the time for marketing, and marketing cutting edge products. So if you think about like the growing cultural emphasis on well-being as another example, and if you start to pick that trend apart, you're going to see probably lots of little trends, like emphasis on mental and physical health, a desire for greater balance, revitalized interest in hearth and home, new focus on spirituality. Like, those would be all little trends within that trend. So the response then to that, if you start looking at it, like grocery stores have more natural organic foods, medicinal herbs, non-toxic cleaning supplies. That would be in search of like wellness or clean living. Some insurance companies have expanded to cover alternative medicine. I've had people do alternative medicine as their trend, and that there's a lot of research out there for that. Hardware stores are carrying air and water purifiers, non-toxic paints, test kits for detecting contaminants such as lead. So again, that would be like green living as a trend, looking for green products. So how do you start for this paper? I'm going to have you do kind of an initial assignment, and I will talk about that with you on Friday, where you're going to explore a couple of trends. Once one of you has chosen a trend, nobody else can have that trend. So every single one of you will have a different trend for this paper. Look at magazines, newspapers, web articles to kind of look for recurring themes, articles that you see over and over. And then think about like the little fads. Do they actually add up to wider trends, deeper trends? And recognize that the obvious isn't so obvious. So you may see something in front of you, but when you analyze it, it's really something else. So like how many people go out and jog for an hour, but then go home and eat a pint of ice cream? Like, look for kind of less obvious trends, and you'll start to see little patterns. So for the paper, prove the trend exists. That's a large portion of the paper. Analyze the causes of the trend. That's another portion of the paper. So you're going to want sources for each of these sections. You're going to want sources that prove it, sources that talk about the causes, make a convincing case for the causes, refute counter causal arguments. So those will all be kind of in the cause section. The effects section is usually the largest section of this paper. What are the effects of the trend on culture? You're going to need sources that talk about the effects of it. And then consider the solutions, and then make predictions, like what are the predictions of the trend? And then you would talk about the counter trend too. That would be the last section. So those are the portions of the paper as we start hunting for sources next week. Research as you're looking. These are, what kind of research do you want? You want research that confirms your hunches, research that suggests other causes, research that proves evidence in support of your proposed causes. Your research should suggest effects and suggest problems and solutions. A trend analysis paper, like I told you kind of what the different parts were. You will have a thesis with this paper where you identify both the trend and the main reason or reasons for the existence of this trend. And then let me walk through. Yeah, as we get into drafting, these are some of the questions that you will need to just think about. You know, have you mentioned only one or two causes when you should probably look for lots of causes? A trend probably has lots of causes. And we'll kind of worry about the rest of those later. So requirements, this is like your assignment sheet. Obviously, this is not due on November 27th. I will talk to you about the revised due date with you on Friday. But you'll conduct primary, secondary research. You will have a one-page typed proposal. Your proposal will, like I told you, I'll tell you about the due date for that next week. You won't be doing this with a partner, obviously, because of COVID-19. You'll submit an annotated bibliography with this paper as well. You'll have a rough draft. You'll document all of your sources in MLA. This is a 3,200 to 4,000 word paper, so it's a little bit longer. It's like what the ethnography would have been. And then you'll do some peer editing as well. How many sources do you have to have? Okay, sorry, I had to stop for just a second. I had to recheck the sources because they made some changes with this paper. So she is asking that we have 12. You'll have 12. Sorry, she's asking that you have 10 to 12. 10 is your minimum. I've had students have like 15 sources for this paper, so you will have 10 as your minimum. 10 to 12 is a good number to cover all of the different parts of the paper. So I believe that that's it. I will talk to you guys more about it on Friday, but I want you to already have the notes on this so you can ask questions. See you then. Bye.